Today I wanted to address the question of how I became a shoemaker. But I think before I can say how, I need to start with why. My passion for shoes started very early on. I remember as far back as like maybe 5 years old, begging and begging my mom for high-heeled shoes. That was my first true love. Of course she said no. So I took matters into my own hands, which will turn out to be one of the traits that describes me. I tend to do this for everything. At that age, I figured, what do I have in my house that is similar to a high heel? The only thing I could think of at the time was the inner tube of toilet paper rolls. I don't know why. The cardboard bit. And putting my foot on paper and outlining it and cutting it out and essentially creating the sole. Grabbing the toilet paper roll and using tape and sticking it down. Obviously, they collapsed immediately. So that was a failed experiment. I had never considered that shoe making could be something I would do. At the time, I didn't think of it. As I got older, I came up with other, dreams and goals and such, and never thought about footwear as something that I wanted to pursue at all. I've always loved it and been obsessed with it and liked looking at it, but didn't really think too much about it. Fast forward to about when I was in college. I was studying music, so my classmates would either be researching like music news or know what was happening in the industry, talk about music all day. But I realized that I wasn't doing that. I was waking up in the morning and researching shoes. Shoe designers, why they designed those styles in that season, in that collection, where they got them made. Mostly aesthetic elements about the design and the designers and how they got to where they were. I had a breakthrough moment at that point. I was almost done with college too. And I realized, wait, my real love isn't music. My real love is footwear. I didn't know to what degree, and I didn't know what I was gonna do with footwear, but I figured maybe I just wanted to design them because that was what I seemed to be gravitating towards. I decided, okay, well at this point, side note, I was an international student, so I don't know if you're aware, but as an international student, paying for college in the United States is like a lot more expensive than as a resident. At that point, I was almost done with college, and I figured, okay, well, I'm out of money. I can't go to now shoe school or fashion school to try to continue my studies. Instead, I figured I would try to get an internship with a shoe designer, a brand, anybody. That's what I did. I researched and researched and researched, and it was so hard because I was living in Miami. So it was really hard to find a shoe designer or a brand based in Miami with a footwear style that I liked that I could reach out to. It was really hard, and it took me a while. I ended up working at a brand for some years and getting the brand knowledge and working with a factory. The shoemaking part comes in because I was working closely with the factory. They would ask me technical questions and I didn't know the answers, and I would ask my colleagues or bosses and they didn't know the answers either. So I dove in and I started researching as much as I could within the resources that I had available to me. So I started researching and Googling and reading up on material, and we luckily live in this day and age when people want to share their work with the world online and we all have access to it. It's genuinely such a unique time in history. So if you ask me how I got started with shoemaking, that's how I started. I started years ago researching and reading and obsessing over the images and obsessing over the videos and any little bit of information that I could get my hands on. I tried my best to understand it, and I kept on researching and finding, okay, what are they doing in this step? What is this process called? What is this that they're using? Piecing it together takes a lot longer than if you could just find an apprenticeship. And I wish I could say that that's the path I took. Genuinely, as much as I've learned through different means, I'm a bit of a traditionalist in that sense. I kind of wish I'd been able to get an apprenticeship with this master shoemaker and gone on from there, but where I lived didn't lend itself to that, and that's just not the way it worked out. It wasn't until a couple years ago that I decided to dive in. I decided to try to make something. I had already tried going the factory route, getting my designs produced, and that didn't turn out the way I had expected. So I was still in desperate need of getting my ideas into 3D form. So I figured I would just take it into my own hands again. and I randomly found a sandal making course for $1 online. It was a deal that was happening, and I figured for $1, might as well. So I took the course, and that was such a monumental step in my life, because even though sandals aren't my thing, still to this day they're not, and they weren't then either, it got me to a point where I bought a knife, and I bought some leather, and I bought a few things that got me started. Maybe they're not the professional tools, but it did get me started. Thanks to that experience of finally getting something made that I could wear, I decided to go a step further and try now, for real, to get an apprenticeship with somebody that would teach me shoemaking. I got an apprenticeship that didn't last very long. I want to say it lasted maybe like 8 months, but it was the most wonderful opportunity to be able to take all the knowledge that I had gathered through reading and videos that I had so many questions about, and go to somebody in real life and ask them, okay, well, I know that this is the next step in the process. What glue do I use for this? Because there's more than one type of glue, and paste and all that kind of situation. What kind of leather? How thick does it need to be? How hard does it need to be? There's so many questions that I had that needed to be answered in order for me to be able to get something really made. And that experience served as a means to answer all those questions. Basically, still piecing together the bits of knowledge that I had gathered with the bits of knowledge that was being taught to me in person, and with that, finally, I put a shoe together. So you know how much I was unaware of so many different elements of shoemaking. This was the first pair of lasts that I got. I picked up this last, I was so excited, and then realized it doesn't have a hinge of any kind. You see my other lasts that have like a V here so that they open, or even the last that I showed you the other day that have like that break, so they open as well. This one doesn't open at all. It's just one solid bit of plastic. You're very limited to the kind of shoes that you can make on this, but I didn't know that. I ended up deciding to make a mule. As you know, a mule is the kind of shoe that just has the front part, the back is open. I was able to make it, take it out, no problems. Did it work out? Yes. Were they hideous? Yes. Horrible. They were really not very nice. But again, it was a great opportunity to finally buy some leather, cut it out, skive it out, glue it. I was able to practice lasting for the first time, lasting the toe. I'd seen makers do it online so many times, and I was finally able to do it, put the toe stiffener, all the things, all the steps that I had gathered throughout time and the knowledge in my head, I was finally putting it out into my hands. That feeling was amazing. After that, I decided to then make some closed-toe shoes, like a full shoe, and I made my first pair of Oxfords, and then I made another pair of Oxfords, and then another pair of Oxfords. Oh no, actually the first pair was a derby, not an Oxford. There's a difference. So yeah, so that was the order. A mule, a derby, and then 2 Oxfords following, and I was hooked. So there you have it. That is how I became a shoemaker. Really no secret recipe, just a lot of time dedicating it to learning and absorbing as much information as possible, and then practicing and practicing, and still to this day continue practicing. So if you liked this video, make sure you give it a like, and if you want to stick around and see what else I come up with and what else I make in this shoemaking journey, go ahead and subscribe. Welcome, and thank you so much for your support. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.